It was a bright sunny afternoon when Mayhawk stepped out of the rickshaw and looked up at the tall glass building in front of her. The large sign read, "Royal Wheels, Luxury Cars for Luxury Lives." She adjusted her scarf nervously, took a deep breath, and walked toward the entrance. Her clothes were clean but simple, a plain cotton dress and old sandals. Her bag was small and worn out. Inside, the showroom was filled with shining luxury cars. Sleek black sedans, bright red sports cars, and spotless SUVs stood like kings on display. The smell of leather and polish was strong. Staff in crisp uniforms stood around, talking to customers who wore designer clothes and expensive watches. Mayhawk entered quietly, her eyes wide with wonder. She didn't look like she belonged here, not in the eyes of the showroom staff. She walked slowly, admiring a silver car with glassy eyes. It reminded her of a dream she had once, sitting in a car like this with her daughter, smiling and driving through the city without any worries. A salesman nearby, tall and proud, noticed her. He leaned toward another staff member and whispered with a smirk, "Look at her. Probably here to take pictures. She can't even afford a tire." The other staff member chuckled, not caring that Mayhawk was standing just a few feet away. Mayhawk heard it. Her heart sank, but she kept walking. She didn't want to make a scene. She reached another car and politely asked a question. "Excuse me, can you please tell me how much this car costs?" The salesman turned to her, barely hiding his mocking smile. "Madam, these are luxury cars. Maybe you should try the used car market down the road. They might have something more suitable." A few customers nearby turned to look. One of them, a young couple, giggled. The woman whispered to her partner, "She really thinks she can buy this." They laughed behind their hands. Mayhawk's cheeks turned red. She felt small, but she said nothing. She just smiled slightly, gave a small nod, and slowly walked out of the showroom. Outside, the heat felt stronger. The city noise suddenly seemed louder. Mayhawk sat down on the edge of a bench, her hands shaking slightly. Her eyes welled up, but she wiped them quickly. She didn't want to cry. Not here. Not because of people like them. She opened her small purse and took out a folded paper, a list of cars her husband Aslan had asked her to check. He had told her, "Pick the one you like. This time, it's your choice, not mine." Aslan never judged her. No matter how simple she dressed, no matter how soft her voice was, he always made her feel like a queen. But the world outside wasn't like that. The world only respected people who wore expensive shoes and held shiny phones. Mayhawk didn't go home right away. She walked slowly through the market streets, thinking. Her mind was quiet, but her heart was noisy. Why did people treat others like this? Did her simple dress make her less of a human? Later that evening, she returned home to their modest but clean house. Aslan was waiting for her in the living room, reading some papers. When he looked up and saw her face, he knew something was wrong. "Mayhawk?" he asked, standing up. "What happened?" She sat down and told him everything. Every word, every laugh, every insult. Aslan listened silently. He didn't interrupt. His face didn't show much, but his eyes, they were burning with anger. When Mayhawk finished, she looked at him and whispered, "Maybe I shouldn't have gone. Maybe they were right. I don't look like someone who can afford those cars." Aslan gently held her hand. "Mayhawk, you don't need to prove anything to anyone. You're my wife, and the way they treated you, they'll remember it." He walked to his phone and made a call. "Junaid, bring the Rolls-Royce tomorrow morning. Cancel my meetings." Then he turned to Mayhawk, kissed her hand, and said, "You're going back there, but not alone." Mayhawk looked at him, confused. "Why?" Aslan smiled, a calm but dangerous smile. "Because tomorrow, they'll learn what real respect means. Not for money, for character." Outside, the city lights were shining, but inside their home, something else had started shining. A quiet fire. The fire of justice. The fire of dignity. Mayhawk didn't know what would happen tomorrow, but one thing was sure. The men at Royal Wheels had laughed too soon. Because the woman they mocked was married to a man who could buy their entire showroom, and he was coming. The next morning, the sun rose like any other day. But for Mehak, it felt different. Her heart beat faster than usual as she stood in front of the mirror, combing her hair. Her clothes were still simple, a plain light blue dress, clean and pressed, but today her eyes held a quiet strength. Aslan, her husband, was downstairs already. A black Rolls-Royce waited outside their house. The car was polished, shining. Like a mirror, it wasn't just a car, it was a message. "Ready?" Aslan asked softly. Mehak looked at him and nodded. "Yes." He smiled and opened the car door for her like a gentleman. She stepped inside. The leather seats, the silent engine, the cool air, everything felt royal. But Mehak wasn't thinking about luxury. She was thinking about respect, and how yesterday it was stolen from her. The Rolls-Royce moved smoothly through the city, streets. People stopped and stared. Children pointed, shopkeepers paused to look. A luxury car like this wasn't something you saw every day. When they reached the showroom, the guards stood straight, their eyes wide with surprise. The same salesman from yesterday, standing inside near the door, saw the car and straightened. His coat quickly. As the car stopped, Aslan stepped out first. Dressed in a black suit, dark glasses, and shiny shoes, he looked like someone who owned half the city. Then Mehak stepped out behind him. The salesman's face changed. He looked pale. Aslan held Mehak's hand and walked with her inside, his face calm but serious. The same salesman rushed forward, now suddenly polite. "Good morning, sir. Welcome to Royal Wheels. How can I help you?" Aslan looked at him with cold eyes. "Do you remember her?" The salesman's face twitched. I'm not sure." Aslan didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "She came here yesterday. You insulted her, you laughed at her, told her to go somewhere cheap. Is that how you treat your customers?" The other staff had gathered now, whispering to each other. The manager came forward, confused and nervous. "Sir, there must be a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," Aslan said. He looked at Mehak. "Tell them." Mehak took a breath and said, "I came here to ask about a car, but they judged me by my clothes. They laughed at me, mocked me in front of everyone. I said nothing. I left quietly." The showroom went silent. The manager looked shocked. He turned to the salesman. "Is this true?" The salesman tried to lie. "Sir, I didn't mean it like that. I was just—" "Enough," Aslan said. He pulled out a business card from his pocket and handed it to the manager. "I'm Aslan Raza, CEO of Raza Group. I was planning to buy 5 company cars today. But I will never do business with people who don't respect others." The manager looked at the card and almost dropped it. The Raza Group was famous. Hotels, factories, even banks. Losing this deal was a huge loss. Aslan wasn't finished. "I will post this story online. And trust me, your showroom's name will be known. Not for your cars, but for your behavior." The salesman tried to speak, but Aslan raised his hand. "Don't apologize to me. Apologize to my wife." The salesman turned to Mehak, his voice shaking. "I'm sorry, madam. I didn't know." Mehak looked at him and said softly, "You don't need to know someone to be kind." The words hit everyone like a stone. Aslan turned to Mehak. "Come on, let's go somewhere better, a place where people know how to treat others." They walked out of the showroom, hand in hand. Outside, people had already gathered to see the Rolls-Royce. Some took photos. A little boy whispered to his mother, "Look, a queen came in that car." Mehak smiled gently. As they drove away, Mehak leaned her head on Aslan's shoulder. "You didn't have to do all that," she said quietly. Aslan looked at her and said, "No one gets to treat my queen like she's nothing." And in that moment, Mehak didn't just feel rich because of the car or the power. She felt rich because of love, because of respect, and because she knew simple clothes can never hide a strong heart. After leaving the showroom, Aslan and Mehak sat silently in the Rolls-Royce. The city moved around them. Busy streets, honking cars, rushing people. But inside the car, it was peaceful. Mehak looked out the window, lost in thought. The memory of yesterday's humiliation still hurt, but today felt different, stronger. She didn't cry, she didn't shout. yet somehow she had won. Aslan glanced at her. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Mehak nodded, then smiled a little. "I'm okay now." Aslan smiled back. "Good. I want to take you somewhere." "Where?" "You'll see." The car turned away from the main road and entered a quieter, older part of the city. After a few minutes, it stopped in front of a small orphanage. The walls were cracked. The building looked old, but children's laughter could be heard from inside. Mehak looked surprised. "Why are we here?" Aslan got out and opened her door. "Come, I want them to see the real you." As they walked through the gate, children ran up to them, smiling and shouting, "Baji Mehak, Baji Mehak." Mehak bent down, hugged them, and smiled brightly. It was like her whole face changed, from soft and silent to full of warmth and love. Aslan stood back and watched as Mehak handed out sweets from her bag, checked a girl's shoes, and helped another tie his shirt button. An old lady, the orphanage caretaker, came to Aslan and said, "Sir, Mehak Baji comes here every week. Even when she didn't have much, she always brought something for the children." Aslan looked at her, surprised. "Even before we married?" The old lady smiled. "Yes. She used to walk here with a small packet of biscuits. These children call her their angel." Aslan's heart softened. He had always loved Mehak's kindness, but today he saw it clearly. She never did anything for praise. She never showed off. Even with a Rolls-Royce parked outside, her eyes were only on the children. Later, as they sat inside the small office of the orphanage, Aslan said, "You never told me you came here." Mehak looked down. "It wasn't something to tell. I just feel peace here." "Why here?" he asked. Mehak took a deep breath. "Because I was like them once." Aslan's eyes widened. "I lost my parents when I was 10, Mehak said slowly. "I lived in a small orphanage in another city. Life was not easy. People judged me for my clothes, for being quiet, for not having money. But one lady, the caretaker of that orphanage, she gave me hope." Aslan listened carefully, not interrupting. She used to say, "You don't need expensive clothes to be respected. You just need a clean heart." I still remember her words. "That's why I dress simply. I want people to see me, not my clothes." Aslan gently held her hand. "Mehak, you're the richest woman I've ever met. And I own banks." She laughed. Quietly, "It's not about money, Aslan. It's about value. You saw today they judge me in seconds, just because I wasn't wearing designer clothes." Aslan nodded. "But you taught them something, without shouting, without revenge. You walked away with dignity. That's real power." She looked at him. "You didn't have to come with me today, but you did. I'll always walk beside you," he said. "Especially when the world can't see your worth." They sat silently for a moment, hands still joined. Outside, the children were playing. Their laughter echoed through the windows like music. Aslan looked around the small office. "What does this place need?" Mehak looked surprised. "Why?" "Because I want to give it," she smiled. "It needs a proper roof, some fans, books for the children." "Done," he said without blinking. "No," Mehak said gently. "Not because I'm your wife, but because these children matter." Aslan nodded. "Okay, then I'll donate in your name, quietly." Mehak smiled. "That's what I love about you." As they left the orphanage, the children waved at them. The Rolls-Royce moved slowly down the narrow road, but Mehak didn't care about the journey. She cared about what she left behind: kindness, respect, and hope. Tomorrow the world would talk about a billionaire's wife in simple clothes. But Mehak didn't need to explain anything, because those who matter already understood. The next morning, the luxury car showroom was quiet at first. Staff members were sipping tea, checking their phones, and chatting about nothing important. But suddenly, a loud engine sound broke the silence. A Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up right in front of the glass doors. Its polished black body shined in the sun, and everyone turned to look. One of the junior salesmen ran inside, shouting, "Boss, some big person is here. Rolls-Royce." The senior manager, Mr. Fahad, rushed to the entrance, fixing his coat and combing his hair with his fingers. "Make sure everything looks clean. Treat them well," he ordered. The doors opened. A tall man in a dark blue suit stepped inside. His watch alone looked worth more than the showroom's monthly rent. Behind him walked a graceful woman in simple clothes. It was Aslan and Mehak, the same Mehak they insulted just 2 days ago. But now she walked with quiet confidence, holding her husband's hand. The staff's smiles slowly faded as they recognized her. Mr. Fahad stepped forward, trying to look excited. "Sir, welcome. How may we help you today?" Aslan didn't smile. He looked around calmly, then said in a firm voice, "2 days ago my wife came here to buy a car." Fahad blinked. "Oh, I'm not sure, sir. We get many customers." "She was treated badly," Aslan continued, "because of her clothes, because she looked simple." One salesman at the back whispered, "That's the same lady. I told you." Aslan turned toward Mehak. "Do you want to say anything?" Mehak shook her head. "No, I've already said everything I needed to, by walking out." Aslan looked back at the manager. "I don't want to buy a car anymore. I just came to return something." He handed over a small envelope. Inside was a complaint letter, addressed to the owner of the showroom group. The manager's face turned pale. "I've also attached a full video," Aslan added. "Your cameras recorded everything. Your behavior, your staff's insults. Let your boss decide what to do with this branch." Fahad tried to smile. "Sir, please. One mistake. We apologize." But Aslan had already turned to leave. Mehak walked beside him, still silent, still calm. As they reached the door, a young female receptionist who had not laughed that day softly called out, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, I remember you. I didn't laugh, but I also didn't stop the others. I just wanted to say sorry." Mehak turned, smiled kindly, and said, "Thank you for being honest. That's the first step to change." They walked out. The doors closed behind them. Back in the car, Aslan asked, "Do you feel better now?" Mehak looked out the window and said, "I didn't go there to get revenge. I just wanted them to remember one thing. Never judge someone by how they look." Aslan nodded. "Well, they won't forget you now." They drove quietly for a while. Then Mehak suddenly said, "I want to go see someone." "Who?" "Rabia Auntie," Mehak replied. "The one who raised you in the orphanage?" Mehak nodded. Aslan smiled. "Let's go." They reached a small apartment in an old part of town. An old woman opened the door with a big smile. Her eyes filled with tears when she saw Mehak. "My daughter," she said, hugging her tightly. They sat together. Mehak told her everything, the insult, the visit, and how she walked out with her head held high. The old woman listened, then placed her hand on Mehak's head and said, "You didn't walk out with pride, child. You walked out with strength, and strength is silent but powerful." Aslan watched them quietly. He had seen Mehak in many roles: a wife, a helper at the orphanage, now a woman who stood for self-respect. And now he knew. She didn't need the Rolls-Royce to prove her worth. She had already done it with her heart. That night, Mehak sat on the balcony of her home, watching the stars. Her phone buzzed again and again, but she ignored it. Aslan walked over with a cup of tea. "Your phone hasn't stopped ringing since we got home," he said. "I don't want to talk to anyone," Mehak replied quietly. "I just wanted to walk away with peace, not become a headline." Aslan smiled. Too late. He handed her the phone. Mehak looked at the screen. Simple woman, shamed at car showroom. Her billionaire husband's arrival. Shocks. Everyone, it was all over the internet. A video from the showroom's CCTV had been leaked, probably by the young receptionist. The world had seen everything. How Mehak was mocked, how she didn't fight back, and how Aslan walked in like thunder. There were thousands of comments. "She's so graceful. Money can't buy class, and she has it. This is why you never judge anyone by their looks." I cried watching this. Mehak's eyes filled with tears, not because she was famous now, but because people understood the pain behind her silence. The next morning, reporters waited outside her house. Cameramen, microphones, and flashing lights. Aslan told the guards to send them away. Mayhawk stayed inside. Quiet. Her phone rang. It was a woman named Sana from a women's empowerment NGO. "Mayhawk, ma'am," she said, "we saw your story. You gave strength to so many. Would you come and speak at our center? Just a few girls who look up to women like you." Mayhawk hesitated. "I'm not a speaker, I'm just—" "You're a symbol," Sana said, "of quiet dignity, of strength without shouting." Mayhawk thought for a moment, then agreed. A few days later, she entered the NGO center wearing a simple dress, her hair tied back. Dozens of young women stood up and clapped for her. One girl raised her hand and asked, "Ma'am, how did you stay calm when they insulted you?" Mayhawk smiled. "Because fighting with them would have made me like them. I wanted to show them I'm stronger, without raising my voice." Another girl asked, "And your husband, wasn't he angry?" "He was, but he stood beside me, not in front of me. That's what love means," Mayhawk replied. There was silence, then more clapping. After the event, Mayhawk sat with Sana, the NGO director. "You don't know how many women came today just to see you," Sana said. "You've started something big." Mayhawk looked surprised. "But I didn't even say much." "Exactly," Sana said. "That's the power of being simple and real." Mayhawk smiled. For the first time in days, her heart felt full. Back home, Mayhawk sat with Aslan in the garden. "Today felt good," she told him. "You looked like a queen." Aslan said, gently teasing her. Mayhawk laughed. "I'm just someone who doesn't like to be judged." Aslan became serious. "Mayhawk, I want to make that showroom an example. Not for revenge, but for change." "What do you mean?" "I want to open a foundation in your name. For women who face humiliation just because they look simple. We'll give them skills, confidence, and the strength to stand tall." Mayhawk's eyes widened. "But my name? You're the reason it exists," Aslan said. Tears rolled down Mayhawk's cheeks, not because of sadness, but because of pride. A pride that came not from being rich, but from being respected. That night, Mayhawk walked into her daughter's room. Little Alina was asleep, her small hand holding a toy car. Mayhawk sat beside her and whispered, "Never let anyone tell you you're less because of how you look. Always walk with your head high, just like your mama did." She kissed her daughter's forehead and smiled. Outside, the world still buzzed about the showroom drama, but inside her heart, Mayhawk felt peace. The next morning, Aslan received a call from his legal team. The manager of the car showroom had seen the viral video and was in full panic. Customers had stopped visiting. People were calling to complain. Some even said they'd never buy a car from them again. "Sir," the lawyer said, "Yak, the owner of the showroom, wants to meet you. He's ready to apologize publicly." Aslan looked at Mayhawk, who was quietly folding clothes in the next room. "Fix a meeting," Aslan replied. Later that day, they both arrived at the car showroom, not as a simple woman and a rich man, but as a calm storm walking into a place that once judged. The staff stood in a line, nervous, sweating. The manager looked pale. The salesman who had insulted Mayhawk couldn't even look her in the eye. I'm sorry," the manager stammered. "We didn't know who she was. We didn't mean to," Aslan interrupted. "So if she was poor, your behavior was acceptable?" "No, I mean, it was wrong either way. I take full responsibility." Mayhawk looked at the salesman. He still didn't speak. She stepped forward, her voice soft but strong. "You didn't even ask me my name. You judged me because of my clothes. Do you know how that feels?" The salesman swallowed hard, then whispered, "I was wrong, ma'am. Truly. I've never felt more ashamed." There was a long silence. Everyone waited for Aslan to explode, but Mayhawk surprised everyone. "I don't want to punish anyone," she said, "but I want something better. I want training for your staff. Teach them how to treat every person with respect, not just the rich ones." The manager nodded quickly. Yes, of course. We will. Thank you." Thank you for giving us a chance, Aslan added, and I will send professionals to lead that training on your expense. If you fail, I will personally make sure your business license is canceled. The message was clear. Mehak's dignity was not for sale, and her silence wasn't weakness. Outside, a group of reporters had gathered again. This time, they weren't shouting questions, they stood in quiet respect. "Ma'am, just one quote?" one of them asked gently. Mehak looked into the camera and said, "Kindness doesn't wear a brand. Respect should never depend on someone's clothes. Let's be better than that." And with that, she walked away. That night at home, Mehak sat with her daughter Alina in her lap. Alina giggled as Mehak told her a bedtime story about a kind queen who taught a kingdom how to be gentle. Aslan sat nearby watching them, a soft smile on his face. "She's learning from the best," he said. Mehak laughed. "I'm just trying to give her a world where she never feels small." Aslan leaned closer. "You've already started that change." The next day, Mehak received an unexpected invitation. It was from a famous university. They were awarding her a medal. For grace under pressure, she read the letter twice in disbelief. "I'm not even a graduate," she whispered. Aslan held her hand. "You taught the world something even educated people forget." The ceremony was grand. Cameras flashed, people clapped, and Mehak stood. On stage, simple clothes, no makeup, only confidence. As she received the medal, she said only one thing: "Don't be ashamed of being simple. Be ashamed of being unkind." The hall echoed with applause. Back at home, Mehak sat alone that evening, thinking about how life had changed so quickly. A week ago, she was insulted for her looks. Now, she had become a symbol of strength. She looked at herself in the mirror, the same woman in the same simple clothes, but now she saw power in her eyes. Weeks passed after Mehak's visit to the car showroom, but people were still talking about her story. Her video had millions of views. Online, her words, "Kindness doesn't wear a brand," had touched hearts everywhere. Strangers sent her thank you letters. Women from small towns said she gave them courage. Young girls called her their role model. But Mehak didn't let fame change her. She still wore the same simple clothes. She still smiled the same soft smile. One morning, Mehak sat at the kitchen table with a notebook. Aslan walked in, holding coffee. "What are you writing?" he asked. Mehak looked up. "I want to start something. Something for women like me." Aslan sat beside her. "Tell me more." "I want to open a training center," she said, "for women who were shamed for being poor, quiet, or simple. I want to teach them confidence, help them speak, work, and believe in themselves again." Aslan nodded slowly, clearly proud. "You've already built that place inside yourself. Now it's time to build it for others." A few weeks later, Mehak's dream came true. The Mehak Center for Dignity and Strength opened in the heart of the city. It was a beautiful, peaceful place, with bright rooms, free workshops, and soft music playing in the background. There were no mirrors, no makeup lessons, no fashion talk. Instead, women learned how to speak with courage, walk with pride, and face the world with grace. Every corner of the center had a sign: "Respect starts with you. Never let the world make you feel small." The first day, 20 women walked in nervously. By the end of the week, they were standing tall and smiling. One afternoon, a young girl named Sana entered the center. Her head was down. Her voice was low. She had been thrown out of a shop for looking too cheap. Mehak sat with her and listened quietly. Then she said, "Sana, people can't see your worth until you do. You are not less. You are not weak." Tears rolled down Sana's cheeks. For the first time, someone had seen her, really seen her. That day, Sana began her journey. 2 months later, she gave a speech at the center's stage in front of 300 people and said, "This place didn't just change my life. It gave me back me." Aslan supported every step. He helped arrange funds, brought in speakers, and made sure the media gave full attention to the center. But he always stood in the background. "This is your light," he told Mehak. You shine. Then one day, something unexpected happened. The same salesman from the car showroom showed up at the center. Mayhawk was surprised to see him. He looked nervous and embarrassed. "Ma'am," he said softly, "I don't want to work in sales anymore. I want to work here. I want to learn how to treat people better. And help others too." Mayhawk looked at him for a moment. She remembered how he had insulted her, how he made her feel worthless, but now he looked truly sorry. "People change," she said gently. "And I believe in second chances. You can join. But here everyone starts by cleaning the chairs." He nodded. "I'll clean every day, if it helps me become a better man." Months later, the Mayhawk Center had trained over 300 women. Some started small businesses, some became teachers, some just learned to live with pride again. Mayhawk was now invited to schools, events, and shows to speak. But she never showed off. She always said, "I'm still the same woman who was laughed at in a showroom. The only thing that changed was I stopped hiding my worth." One night, Mayhawk sat in her garden with Aslan and their daughter Alina. "Mama," Alina said, "when I grow up, I want to help women like you do." Mayhawk smiled and kissed her forehead. "Then grow with a kind heart, my love. That's the best start." Aslan looked at both of them and whispered, "This family didn't just rise, it lifted others too."